Good evening. Welcome. We want to welcome you tonight into our Let's Talk Columbus. As you know, this was started actually by the previous mayor, Mayor Tomlinson. She had a Let's Talk with the mayor to give the public an opportunity to be able to address elected officials and folks working for the consolidated government, so they could ask any questions that they had about city services. We rebranded it as Let's Talk Columbus because we want to focus on you, on Columbus, Georgia. And our intent is to try to be able to answer as many questions as we can over the next hour to hour and a half. Now, we've been receiving questions over the last week. We asked people to email them in, so we'll be working through those. But for those of you watching on Facebook Live, we want to invite you, if you have a question or you hear something that sparks a question in your mind, we want you to go ahead and ask it, because we're going to try to get to those as well. I want to let you know, too, that we've got just about anybody who might be needed to answer some of your questions here tonight. Obviously, we've got our city manager, Mr. Isaiah Hughley, and the two deputy city managers, Lisa Goodwin and Pam Hodge. But we also have department heads from just about every department throughout the consolidated government. We may have more, but I want to welcome two of our newer department heads, let you know that they're joining us for the first time. Our new fire chief, Sal Scarpa, is joining us, and Michael Criddle, our new director of public works. And there may be a few others. We've got a couple of others that have joined, but we will introduce them if they are on as we move forward. This is going to be a panel discussion format. The questions that you have sent in that you may ask, we are going to be doing our best to try to get you an answer to those. And I want to introduce you to, well, I'll introduce David in a minute. Well, I'll go ahead and introduce him now. We've got our moderator who works in the tax commissioner's office, Mr. David Britt. David, how are you?
Doing well, Mayor. How are you?
I'm great. We're glad to have you do this again. We must not have been too bad, because you came back to do it a second time, so that's good. Before we get started with the questions with David, I want to give you one update. One of the topics that I think we deal with every day, and you do as well, is the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. So just to give you a little bit of an update, I know you're probably getting sick of numbers, but that's what we're using. We're using science, and we're using the numbers that the science tells us, and what we need to do. Currently, we're at 5,809 positive cases in Muscogee County. We've had 160
unknown participant is now joining
of this city that have lost their lives to this virus. Some of the numbers we watch pretty regularly. We really pay a lot of attention to the hospitalization rate, to the absorption rate of the hospitals. We have seen our numbers across the board trend down. Most of them have sort of leveled off and plateaued. But again, the one that we watch really closely is the number of COVID patients. And that has kind of stayed level somewhere between 40 and 50 in all of our hospitals over the last several weeks. Right now, we're at 45 who are admitted to the hospital and have been positively diagnosed with COVID-19. But the interesting thing is the hospital rooms there aren't as many rooms available as there have been in the past. And I think that's indicative of the fact that even though we're doing a good job, and you're doing a good job of helping us hold the spread down of COVID, there's a lot of other folks who are sick and need medical attention and medical procedures, and they are in the hospital. So that's why it's so critical that we continue to monitor and try to hold these numbers down, because we don't want to squeeze that other group of patients to a point where the hospitals have a tough time providing resources. We also watch for trends. We've been watching and paying attention to a 7-day rolling average, which is nothing more than the average daily cases over the most recent 7 days. And whereas back on I think the 16th of August, we were up in around 100 and something per day. Now we're down into the teens. We're at 19. We also monitor a 2-week number that reflects the total number per 100,000 residents. And the target there is 100, 100 cases per 100,000 residents. Again, back in August, we had about 391 cases per 100,000. That's down to about 136. So our target for that is to get at or below 100. And if you have COVID questions today, we do have with us Dr. Asante Hiltz from the Regional Department of Public Health, and she will be able to hopefully take on any of those questions. But for now, David, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll try to get started with some of the questions that the folks have asked.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mr. City Manager. Good evening to all of our guests. Mayor, you talked about the numbers going down for COVID. I know you've gotten a lot of different opinions regarding masks. When will the mask requirement be lifted?
Well, we mentioned that the number of cases, the 100 cases per 100,000 residents, that's been one of the key benchmarks that the governor's executive order identified as being the sort of the threshold that allows local governments the opportunity to enact a mask ordinance. And our council has ratified that executive order in placing that mask mandate in place. But we will probably continue to require masks until we get below that 100 level. So we'll continue to monitor it, and we let the public know as those numbers change. And when we get below 100, we will consider removing that requirement.
Okay. So that 100 level, is that how you determine the value of the masks? People want to know, how do you know that the mask ordinance is what's helping? So how do you determine that value of the mask requirement?
Well, first of all, the mask is not a magic bullet. The mask is actually a tool to be utilized with a number of other tools to try to prevent the spread. And those other tools are things like social distancing, paying attention to your body. If you feel sick, staying home and staying away from gatherings. It's things like washing your hands. But a mask is vital. We actually watched a couple of other cities our size, Augusta, Savannah, and then one a little smaller but has a lot of activity, and that is Athens. And we noticed that as they enacted a mask ordinance, it didn't really reflect in their numbers for probably 3 to 5 weeks. So we knew we had to kind of get in front of things because we had Labor Day coming up. We had the possibility of in-class schools again. Some of the children were returning to school. We had high school football kicking off, and we just had a lot of potentially triggering events. So we went ahead and put that in place, and our numbers, despite some of those, have continued to drop. It's almost impossible to point, and I would never try to point just to one initiative as a reason that our numbers are low. I think it shows that by Columbus being willing to work together and look after one another, the mask is part of that. I think it's being reflected in the way our numbers are continuing to stay down.
Gotcha. And along with that, and this may be from some of those that disagree with the mask ordinance, how, with it not being that magic bullet, how do you determine the effectiveness of wearing masks?
Well, we listen to the science, and I'm well aware that you can find some numbers to support just about any argument you want to make. One thing I'll point out is that we have heard from a lot of folks about masks, and it's not about politics. It's not a political tool or political weapon. It is quite simply it's a tool to use to try to protect people's health. And what we did and what council did is we weighed we weighed both sides that we were hearing from, and we had a chance to make a significant improvement in the odds that people will be able to avoid getting COVID-19. And on the other hand, we had some folks that it just wasn't something that they wanted to participate in. So we just chose health over hurting people's feelings. And we're going to continue to enforce that mask ordinance because we believe it is working. It is part of what's allowing us to keep our numbers low.
Gotcha. You mentioned that the numbers are lowering, and it's been determined that mass events are one thing that help grow the spread. Are there any events over the next few months that you anticipate could increase our numbers?
Well, we still don't know yet what Labor Day did. I mean, if you look back historically, if you look at about 2 weeks after Memorial Day, we had a big jump. If you look at 2 weeks after July, we hit the highest peak we've hit about the 28th of July. So we're still about 7 days from being able to determine if Labor Day gatherings had any really detrimental effect on our numbers. Schools have just begun to take students in class. I mentioned football. I mentioned the fact that there are some other gatherings coming up. So all of those events have the potential, if people aren't socially distancing and they're not wearing masks and they're not paying attention to CDC guidelines, all of those have an opportunity and a potential to negatively impact our numbers.
Gotcha. Now, Mayor, there's been a lot of new department heads. Many are on the chat now. One in particular is the new police chief. What is the process that will be used to hire the new chief of police for Muskogee County, Columbus, Georgia?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that question. A lot of folks have been asking how we're going about that process, and I introduced our new fire chief, Sal Scarpa, and we use the same procedures that we did with Chief Scarpa. We hired a search firm who searched nationwide and brought to us a number of individuals that were recommended as possibles for interviews. So we're doing that with the police chief. So we're at a point now where we're getting some of those names in. We'll whittle them down, and by we, I mean the city manager and HR director and I. We will whittle some of those down based on some video interviews and also their resumes to a manageable number, and then we'll bring them in for interviews. Now, even though the public safety appointments are made by the mayor, I really want input from a lot of folks as we go through that process. So we went through a process and we will again with the police chief, where we had three interview panels. One was a peer group made up of folks approximately the same level as the new chief. And one panel was a professional panel. We actually will bring in police chiefs from around our region who will help us assess the technical skills and the professional skills of the potential candidates. And then the third panel was an executive panel, the city manager and the HR director and myself. We did throw in one wrinkle with the police chief because we're very sensitive to the fact that there's a lot of conversation around now about interaction between the police departments and the community. So we have asked the city council to provide us with a couple of names, and we're going to use a couple of focus groups, citizens focus groups led by the same search organization. And they are going to be asked to help us determine what types of talents, what types of personality traits, what type of philosophies they think would be most beneficial in a new police chief. And then we'll likely, we'll craft the questions, or the search company will craft questions based on that. And then we'll even share them back with those focus groups so that they'll know that it was a necessary and very pertinent part of the process. So hopefully we'll have all of that done, go through the interviews around the middle of October, and have made a selection before the end of October.
Right. Now, you did mention that you are having some community involvement in that process, but many in the community want more community policing powers, specifically subpoena powers. What is your view on subpoena powers?
We had two ordinances that were brought before council that were going to provide the Public Safety Advisory Committee right now the ability to review any use of force forms. And I'll point out here that 2019, we had only had 108 use of force forms filed and had almost 270,000 responses to 911 calls. So when they do have an incident where there's any kind of force use, and that can be as minimal as just putting your hands on somebody to put them in handcuffs, they fill out a form. So both ordinances require that those forms be made available to the Public Safety Advisory Commission, but one also granted subpoena powers. So we've put together a group of citizens at the request of council who are kind of working together on those two ordinances to come up with some middle ground that they think might work for the community. As for me personally, I've kind of gone on record as saying I don't think subpoena power is necessary. I think the transparency and the accountability that the public is looking for is already there with the accessibility of the use of force forms and the Open Records Request Act. So I think that group though is going to do a good job. They'll be meeting in an area where the public can come watch. So we'll put some more information out about that here in the next few days.
Gotcha. Speaking specifically on social justice issues, what has the city done to address those social justice issues pertaining to the Columbus Police Department, specifically with the use of excessive force?
I'll start that, and if the police chief wants to jump in, we'll let him. And I'll start by saying that I think one of the things that we could do a lot better with the police department is let people know what they do, because the police department has been involved in the community in so many different levels, and by and large, they do a terrific job in dealing with the community and protecting the community. But we did have some national organizations that brought forward some requests that we consider, and of course the police chief addressed those, and I think I'll let him speak. But I think he met with some of these representatives and actually put it in the form of a resolution that council adopted, that the policies and the training of the CPD would reflect those specific items, and most of those in some form the police department's already doing. I got to tell you, they just had the national accreditation group in here. There's about 600, and I'm sure the chief can tell you exactly. There's about 600 plus departments that are nationally accredited and state certified, and we're one of them. So they just went through that process. It involves a lot of training, annualized training, so that they go through some of these things every year. So, Chief, you may want to elaborate on some of that.
Sure. We just got through with our going into and finishing our 9th reaccreditation in the department. It started in 1993. We're in the process now of national accreditation as well as state certification. There are 729 agencies across the United States out of about 18,000 agencies that are accredited, and we're one of those. There's 137 agencies that are certified over the state of Georgia out of 650 agencies, and we're one of those. And we did meet with some of our citizen groups. We have also met with council. We've also met around the staff table in reference to discussion topics in reference to social justice involving police departments, and I'll say that with an S. Things like strangleholds, de-escalation, firing a warning shot before shooting, duty to intervene, shooting from a moving vehicle, and use of force continuum. And we're proud to say that based on certification and accreditation, we already met the criteria. We went to council. We presented a talk to council and certification as to what we do on a daily basis to council, and council came up with a resolution, and I think they're in the process of doing some type of ordinance now as we speak. But an agency that is state certified and national accredited already addresses the points of contingency in other jurisdictions.
I think the key point, David, was that we were able to bring some of the community members together with the police department and allow them to have those conversations. And I think that's going to be critical going forward, that we continue to create opportunities for our police department to be able to interact with the citizens before they bump into each other during a traffic stop or something of that nature. I think the more we can get folks to understand what the police department does, and the more we can get the police department to understand how some people in our community feel at these traffic stops, that's going to be critical for us being able to move forward.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. And to everyone that is watching on Facebook, I do want to remind you, if you have questions, please post your questions. We'll try to get to as many of those as possible. Mayor, we have another question about COVID. Who is in charge of enforcing COVID safety orders in Columbus restaurants?
The authority to enforce the governor's executive order rests with the police department and the sheriff's department. We have, for the most part, we've had good compliance, but we do hear from time to time that there are some restaurants that may not be abiding by the order. So we have been asked by the governor. The governor asked mayors across the state to be a little bit more attentive to those that might be in violation and try to make sure that we are actively enforcing his order. So we'll probably step that up a little bit. The intent is not to close anybody down, but we want everybody, we want restaurants, bars, any enterprise out there, we want them to help us help them. And by doing that, we'll be able to kind of keep folks safe.
Gotcha. Now, someone has a tag question. Someone has a question. I've been having trouble getting the tag office to answer the phone. What is the issue? Mayor, if you don't mind, I'll take that one.
I'll let you.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I serve as the Chief Deputy Tax Commissioner for the Tax Commissioner's Office. We were made aware of an issue that we were having with our phones, and that issue did get corrected. We're constantly working with IT to monitor any issues, so please contact us if you have any issues. You can reach us online. I know a lot of people want to miss that line that's outside. You can avoid the lines. A lot of stuff can be done online. If you have a motor vehicle issue, it's eservices.drives.ga.gov. And if it's a property tax issue where you can pay your bill online, where you can look up property information, it's columbusga.org/tax commissioner. You can also, on that eservices.drives.ga.gov, you can renew your tag online as well. Also, if you do have to come down, but you don't want to wait in line, there is a drop-off box in the front. And there's a black drop-off box. If you have a check and have your bill, you can leave it there. And also want to remind everybody, all of our property owners, that time that you all love, property taxes are coming due. At least 40% is due by October 15th. That's a Thursday. Again, we do encourage you to come in before time and not wait to the last minute because we will be a lot busier. But again, at least 40% of property taxes are due by Thursday, October 15th. Have another question. This is regarding crime. We read about a lot of the murders in our city. What actions are being taken to address all of the crimes and specifically all of the murders that are going on in Columbus?
Well, I'm gonna defer that to the police chief, but I will tell you that they use a number of different tools. They've given us presentations on the intelligence-based policing that they've been using for years to try to predict some areas that might be likely to have some issues. But I'm gonna let Chief Boren respond to that.
And the mayor started that, and that is correct. Intelligence-based policing, we put data into our computers every day, and we look for hot spots, especially with serious crime in the community. And on a daily basis, we can redirect cars from one area of town to the other around certain times. Our problem is that some of these cases are involving domestic violence, and we've had a total of 27 murders so far this year to date. 23 of those were with guns, 2 of them were with use of hands, and the rest were with knives. Robbery, domestic violence, and drugs have been centered in as to some of the reasons for these murders. We are in the areas with special undercover groups. We are working and continue to work any homicides that may not be solved at the time that we respond to every murder scene. Murders are not shut down based on the amount of time between the offense and the clearance. We're in the process and have been to where we solve murders that's happened 2 or 3 years prior or prior to it being solved. So it never goes away. We continue the investigations. If we have one group that's having problems with the investigation, we transfer that to another group so that we'll have fresh eyes on it all the time. And again, we depend on our public to notify us or call us with any information that they have, and every piece of information is always followed up on.
And let me add, David, that the law enforcement side is a big part of it, and our police department, sheriff's department, they do a great job on trying to get those things taken care of. But we also have a prevention piece. We just had almost $750,000 that were awarded to different organizations that are all focused on helping. Most of them are focused on helping youth, giving them an alternative, giving them a more solid and more productive path to get on instead of getting caught up in some of the things that ultimately lead to crime. One of the big challenges we have in stopping crime is oftentimes it comes from poverty. And we've got about a 22% poverty rate that we are working on, and we're working with a number of partners to try to help eat into that number a little bit so that we can get folks making better decisions.
Gotcha. We're going to switch gears in a second because I know we have a lot of other topics people want to address. But one more question for now regarding policing. Do our police officers have body cameras, and do they attend any kind of sensitivity or de-escalation training?
Yes, de-escalation is mandated by Georgia law. Everybody has to, under the Post Peace Officer Standard Training Council, attend a course in de-escalation on a yearly basis. At the time that we did our presentation to council, I showed them the book that I had to review myself and take a test on to make sure that I was fluent in the verbiage of that book. So it goes all the way from the beginning officer all the way up through my office. Those records are kept both here and with the state of Georgia, and it's mandated again by law. Every uniformed officer that I have in the Columbus Police Department has a body cam. There's rules and regulations governing the use of that body cam. The footage is maintained here. It's under open records, or can be obtained under an open records request if whatever incident has been investigated and closed that body cam was used in, and at some point in time it's turned over to the courts in a case that requires prosecution. The answer to that is yes. If I have plainclothes officers, detectives that work part-time employment in uniform, then they're required to wear a body cam.
Thank you, Chief. Question about voting. Will we have in-person voting in November? And will any of the precincts be different?
I'm not sure if our elections director is on, but yes, there's going to be in-person voting made available. And I will tell you that Nancy Bourne has done an amazing job. In the past, there have been about 30 to 40 machines available where people could vote early. They wanted to go vote at the voting booth. This year, they've got 140 spread out across the city. I know there's a good number of those are going to be in the ice rink out there near the Civic Center. So yes, we're gonna have in-person voting this year, and there will be early voting as well.
Yes, sir. And I would say that early people definitely probably want to early vote because that line can definitely be long toward the deadline.
That's right, and that's one of the reasons that that Ms. Bourne has put so many different options out there this time, because with COVID and with the social distancing, it can make for very long lines because people can't be right up on each other.
All right. Mr. City Manager, I have a question for you. What is the city doing to address the potholes?
Thank you for the question, and I am going to pass that question on to either Deputy City Manager Goodwin or Michael Criddle, who's our new Public Works Director. But before I do that, I just wanted to go back to voting because, if you don't mind, that's a very important subject. And just wanted to mention some key dates. The last day to register to vote in the Georgia general and special election is October 5th. Early voting in person begins October 12th and runs through October 30th. And you can vote at the Citizen Service Center at 3111 Citizens Way each day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that is October 26th through 30th only. You'll be able to do it at the Columbus Convention and Trade Center at 801 Front Avenue, and that'll be from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. Each and every day. People who are not registered to vote and want to register to vote or know your voting poll location, you can check your voting status, and you can request absentee ballot, you can view sample ballots and more. But the website is www.mvp.sos.ga.gov if they want to go there. And I do know that you asked a specific question of me about potholes, and we're going to get to that. But I also wanted to take this opportunity to just quickly update citizens on Hurricane Sally. Just a quick update. You may know that we had 6 to 8 inches of rain overnight since Wednesday, yesterday. We had 9 street closures due to flooding in various locations across the city. We had a number of 911 calls to come in reporting approximately 12 trees down across the city. Due to the amount of rain overnight, Heath Park and Cooper Creek Park were closed for safety, but that's been resolved. Overall, we had a minimal impact as a result of the 6 to 8 inches of constant rain, heavy rain, and high winds last night. So that citizens know our people were prepared. When we anticipate events such as Hurricane Sally, we do a number of things to prepare. Essential CCG employees will be on call and prepared to work day and night to remove trees, limbs, traffic signals, place barricades out to close flooded streets, and render aid to citizens. We have a hotspot list for streets that are known to flood, and those streets and watersheds are inspected prior to anticipated heavy rain events to make sure inlets and are clear of debris, and watersheds are clear of obstruction that might hinder the flow of water. Our 311 call center call takers were required to work last night, answer calls through the night as necessary. Our public works people, engineering, and other departments and city resources were on call, and they were dispatched through 311 and 911 for any concerns with flooding or down trees, etc. We were monitoring warning signals closely and had at least 2 methods to receive weather warnings from the National Weather Service or local radio and TV. We did not have to activate the Emergency Operations Center, but we were ready last night, and that's what we do to prepare for each event. Now, to get to your question, I don't know who's going to volunteer to answer that question, but we've got Deputy City Manager Lisa Goodwin, and we've got the new Public Works Director, Michael Criddle, and the question is about potholes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, by way of introduction, I am going to ask the new Public Works Director, Michael Criddle, who's on, to respond to that, and he is ready to respond. And Mike, I will turn it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. we have obviously we have pothole problems. We're a city, a lot of pavement, a lot of streets to maintain, a lot of asphalt to cover. So far this year, we have repaired 4,313 potholes in the city of Columbus. A lot of those have come in from customer concerns to the 311 center, and we appreciate those. A lot of them have been pointed out by our employees as well. We'll continue to work on potholes. Potholes are an ongoing problem, particularly as we get closer to the rainy season. You know, more rain, cold weather has impact on the asphalt. It does crumble. Events like yesterday will uncover some weak spots in the asphalt, and we're going to find some more potholes to fix. So we encourage the citizens to keep calling in, let us know about those. If it's something dangerous, we'll block it off until such time as we can repair a pothole. We obviously can't repair potholes in the rain like it was yesterday or today, but we'll certainly get out there and get those corrected as quickly as possible. But to reiterate, we have have patched 4,313 to date so far this year. So that's quite a number of potholes, but we obviously want to improve that. We're looking even at some new equipment, some state-of-the-art equipment that will help us heat the area around the potholes. So wintertime potholes will be much more durable, much easier to fix. Instead of just using cold patch, we can go in there with actually a hot mix asphalt and fix those for a more permanent repair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Criddle. Thank you, Mr. Hughley, City Manager Hughley, and Deputy City Manager Goodwin. And also, Mr. Hughley, thank you for that information on early voting. To reiterate, early voting, October 12th through 30th at the Citizen Service Center from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then October 26th through the 30th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Trade Center. And registration, the deadline for voting registration is October 5th, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Also, speaking of reaching out to the city for the great job they're doing in handling things like potholes and then being ready for that storm that took place yesterday, the app, we have a recent app, Columbus 311, and that is another way for citizens to reach out and make requests and contact, correct?
We've got Tiasha Johnson, I believe, on the call, and she is a manager of our 311 call center, and I'm going to yield to her to respond to that question.
Hello. Yes, we have our Columbus 311 app, and citizens are able to download the Columbus 311 app on the App Store, whether it's in Google Play Store or on their iPhone, Apple Store, iTunes. But just type in Columbus 311, all one word, and then they're able to pull up the app that way.
All right, thank you. This question is for our city attorney, Mr. Fay. When will courts get back to a regular schedule?
Hi, David. We do have a little more information on the courts as of today. Our local bar association, local judges and attorneys were on a call today with the governor and the Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court. Judicial emergency is still in effect for our state, but we learned today that we're probably going to be looking at grand jury summons going out in October, November timeframe here in Muskogee County, where grand juries can actually come in and review cases. They've been backlogged. As many of you know, we've got about 475 cases ready for review by a grand jury right now in Muskogee County. So they're going to try to get grand juries rolling again here in the next couple of months, probably looking at criminal jury trials starting in 2021. That's the hope. Federal court is a little different timetable. They're looking at some October criminal trials in our local district court here with Judge Clay Land, and probably some civil trials starting in March of 2021. Things are going to look different in the courtrooms in some of these cases. There'll be limited access. There may even be 8 jurors on civil cases in federal court. next year instead of your normal 12 jurors, but that's to allow spacing of jurors, lawyers, bailiffs, and court personnel. So things are going to look a little different, but hopefully it'll be starting up at least trying to get some criminal jury trials back on the docket here early 21 in Muskogee County.
All right, thank you. Thank you. We have a question coming in from Facebook Live. It's regarding community policing, specifically with bike patrol. With so many of our citizens using the different bike trails, what is the status on policing with bike patrol?
Well, because of the shortages that we have in Columbus on police officers, they will probably see more people down there, not on bicycles in those areas, but probably four-wheelers, because they can cover a distance in the parks, a distance on the rails to trails, on the Riverwalk with four-wheelers better than bicycles. They'll see that, they'll see more of that, and we have to depend on our traffic units to perform those surveillances in those areas for us, and not just the bike patrol unit that we once had the privilege of having.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Mayor, what is the plan for opening the Aquatic Center?
Yeah, Dave, we've been getting a lot of questions from people who have been anxious to get back in the water in the Columbus Aquatic Center. We've been communicating with the health department through our Parks and Recreation department, and we've been meeting every 2 weeks. The city manager, deputy city managers, Parks and Rec, and I, and we talked about all of our facilities, because we still have some rec centers that aren't open. We still have senior centers that aren't open, but we do recognize, and the health department has advised us that it would be possible to begin a phased opening of the Aquatic Center. We'll start our target date, and I hate to throw a date out there, because if the numbers were to go crazy and we have some problems, we reserve the right to amend that plan. But right now the plan is to try to get it open on the 26th of this month, which would be a week from Saturday, but at a very limited access. So we're working with right now the health department, our Parks and Rec department is, to come up with some protocol that everybody feels comfortable with. We've been engaged with the swim teams, with the Muskogee County School District Athletic Director, but the idea is to try to have it open and functional in time for the high school swim season, which begins early October.
Mr. City Manager, similar question for our recreation centers. Will the recreation centers follow that same kind of plan?
And, but yes, and I'll yield to the mayor to respond to the rec centers as well.
It is pretty much, it is the same, David. We're not ready to open those just yet, but we will use a very similar phased approach, and we will do it based on science and based on the advice and guidance of the health department.
Gotcha. And going along those lines, we have a question about hockey season. Will we have a hockey season at the Civic Center this year?
And so, Mayor, well, the mayor can respond, but I was going to say, of course, our new Civic Center Director, Rob Landers, is in the meeting, and of course, Deputy City Manager Goodwin. But Mayor, that's a question for you.
Actually, my answer was going to be to introduce Rob. So,
Okay.
so I think we'll let him answer that question. He's been in constant talks with representatives of the hockey team.
Good evening, everyone. But yes, as of right now, we've put a lot of safeguards in place as it relates to the upcoming hockey season. Obviously, like most arenas and event venues around the world, we've had to adapt to social distance seating. So with that being said, we have made the adjustments for our venue and our arena, and we are planning for hockey season to begin in early January. Again, you know, we are going to go off of the governor's guidelines and mayor and local health authorities' recommendations. But as of today, I can tell you that we are planning for a hockey season to begin in 2021. Yes, we will have limited seating, and we will have new reopening guidelines for guests that come into the building. But I think that, again, if we all can work together and be conscious of the guidelines that we have in place, I don't see no reason for us not to have a successful season in 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Landers. And Mr. City Manager, this kind of ties into that. How has the pandemic impacted financial challenges for the city?
Well, and that's an excellent question. And let me just say that we've fared really, really well here in Columbus, Georgia, during this pandemic. We've provided the city council, the mayor and council updates at the last two city council meetings regarding our sales tax. And I can tell you that our sales tax was up by 3.64% in May. Our sales tax was up by 4.21% in June. July up by 4.6% when compared to July of 2019. And when I say up 4.6%, that's an increase of about $147,000 this year in July over last year in July. Now, sales tax makes up only 25% of our total overall revenue. So we have to keep this in perspective. As we prepare to close the books, I can tell you on fiscal year 20, which is July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020, we are very optimistic right now about how we will close out 2020 from an expense revenue standpoint. And we are going to be reporting those final numbers to the mayor and council. Once our external auditors complete their work, we will do a public report to the mayor and council at city council meeting. But I can tell you right now, we are very optimistic. Our sales tax, again, is up, and it's up at a time when, if you look at the metro Atlanta cities, the sales tax for them is down by 10.5%. In Augusta and Macon, cities like that, they are down in their sales tax anywhere from 2 to 4%. But Columbus has been up May, June, July, and August. And so we are continuing to fare well during COVID. And of course, I want to at least, Mayor, pause and say to Deputy City Manager Lisa Goodwin and Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge, who are on in the meeting, but just to mention the CARES Act funding. We have been, based on our population, allocated $34 million. And population is important because that points to census. Only because of our population did we get 34 million. We've got to get out. We've got to do what needs to be done to get people to complete the census, because that 34 million based on our population could be half that if we don't do the census and we get half the population at the end of the day. That is important, but during this time that we've gone through COVID, that $34 million has been on the table, not just for the city of Columbus. We've made it available and reach out to citizens to try and help them get through this turbulent time. And so I'll yield to Deputy City Manager Goodwin and Pam Hodge to talk about what we've done, not just for the city government, but for local businesses in an effort to assist them in their expenses during this tough time. So, Deputy City Manager Goodwin.
Okay, yes. The city we have received the first phase of our funding of that 34 million. We have received a little over $10 million. And with that $10 million, of course, we are able to do some things in city government that we need to do in terms of the reimbursement for COVID expenses. However, we have also engaged Media Marketing and More, who is our third-party contractor, to help us. And they're the ones who are going out to the community. We had a huge push to be able to get this out to the community, and 3 different grant opportunities for COVID funds, which was medical and health. It was the second one was community assistance, and then again, small business and the arts organization. And so we did receive just over 472 or so applications through this process. And the Media Marketing and More and her team, under the leadership of Marquette McKnight, they have gone through that process. They're still going through that, and will then send it over to our team, the city's team, to review those things so that we can look at those applications. Now, we at this point have not heard anything and received no direction on phases 2 and phase 3. Of course, this should be going through the end of December based on how it was the approval process. And so we're looking forward to looking to see just what the community's needs are, so that we can address those based on the applications that have been submitted. And so I'll ask Deputy City Manager Hodge if she has anything that she'd like to add to that.
No, I don't have any further comments on that.
Well, and let me just close the subject on COVID and CARES Act funding by saying that's $34 million that we are entitled to. That's entitled to based on population. Well, we were entitled to just over $6 million that came into public transit because of population. We were entitled to $900,000 in community development block grant funds based on population. And then just a couple of days ago, they alerted us that we would get an additional $1.1 million in CDBG funds. Again, population is important. And the only way we can have the population that we have today, or increase the population that we have today, or decrease the population that we have today, we can either complete the census and sustain and increase our population, or if we don't get people to complete the census, our population is going to show a decrease. And so that entitlement that I talk about that we are benefiting from based on population would be less than it is today. We need our share of money. And so I'm doing this to make a plea to those who have not completed the census to complete the census. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors to complete the census. It's about the money, and it's about redistricting, and it's about reapportionment. It's about the money. Complete the census.
Yes, sir. Thank you, City Manager. And you actually answered one of the next questions of why it's so important. And again, you all count. Make sure you be counted. Please complete your census. Had one more question about the CARES Act that you all touched on. Is it too late for a small business or a business to apply for CARES funding?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to yield to you, but yes.
Yes, it is.
The deadline was August 24 at 5:00 p.m., not 5:01. August 24th.
Gotcha. Another question regarding crime in this city. When will we have a task force for all of the drive-by shootings happening in Columbus, Georgia?
Well, we've had way too many
Unknown
drive-by
participant
shootings.
is now exiting.
Way too many drive-by shootings in Columbus, without a doubt. We already have groups from the investigative services area, Robbery and Assault Patrol, that responds to these drive-by shootings, whether there's personal injury or property injury. We collect evidence on every scene. We are using some of the federal databases as well as our own databases. We have evidence collection, we have storage, we have cataloging of that information, and with some federal databases, we're already comparing, in the process of comparing whether they be projectiles or shell casings or whatever on scenes, so we can match one crime scene with the other. Then we depend on citizens, we depend on investigative techniques, we have robbery informant money for the different assaults, robberies, or whatever, murders in the neighborhood, and we have to put a lot of dependence on our citizens.
And I'll add to that, David, too, and the chief knows we've been working with the DA and the judicial branch and encouraging them to be a little bit more aggressive in the sentencing and how they handle anybody on parole or any previous felon who is found to be with a handgun, because the biggest challenge is getting the guns off the streets. And so they have all cooperated. We intend to talk to the incoming DA, and we're very hopeful that we'll continue that same aggressive approach to trying to get rid of the guns.
Thank you, Mayor. Had a question. There's one question, excuse me, that I missed. The Warm Springs Road project. What is the status of the Warm Springs Road project? When will that be finished?
Deputy City Manager Hodge can probably answer that better than any of us.
So that's the Talbotton Road project. That is a GDOT project. They are scheduled for completion of summer of 21. So next summer.
Gotcha. Halloween. What is the city planning? What is the city plan for Halloween, Mayor?
Well, I'm gonna let Rob and Lisa handle most of that, but I will tell you that from our perspective, what we're trying to do is create a very safe alternative to door-to-door trick-or-treating. We know a lot of parents are nervous about their children going door to door. So between what we have in mind to kick off Halloween and what the churches are doing, I know our police department has been actively involved in trunk or treat every year. We hope to give enough alternatives and then discourage people from going door to door, but we will give them, by working with Dr. Hiltz and the folks at the health department, some pretty solid guidelines on what they should do if they insist on going door to door. Deputy City Manager Goodwin.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to yield to Holly Browder and Rob Landers. They have both been working this, and Holly has been kind of leading this effort. So Holly, if you will tell them about our fabulous Spooktacular.
Absolutely. Thank you. We are very excited. It's a partnership that we have now between our department, the Parks and Recreation Department, the Civic Center, the Columbus Police Department, the Sheriff's Department. We can't release too many details at this point, but we very shortly will have a lot of information going out to the public about an event that we're going to hold on October the 24th. It will be a socially distanced event, something that we have worked with the mayor on. We feel like it will be very creative and very fun for the kids. It'll be something different that we've never offered before in our community, and we're really hoping to have a large turnout, but it will be socially distanced. How are we going to do that? It's going to be a drive type event where kids will not get out of the car and folks will be able to stay safe, but at the same time have a really good time, celebrate the fall season, and really get to come out and participate in a holiday type event. So, but we're really looking forward to it. It will be held at the Civic Center, and so we'll have plenty of space that we can spread folks out, and we'll be looking for lots of folks in the community to come out and participate with us. So if you're an organization that typically has partnered with us in the past for Spooktacular, we look for you guys to come out and do so again. And I also would be remiss if I didn't mention that Uptown Columbus has also partnered with us for this event, since we're unable to host our annual Spooktacular that we do each year. This will take the place of that event. And again, it'll be October the 24th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m.
All right, thank you, Ms. Browder. Got a question for either the mayor or the city manager. This is a great question. Do you foresee a pay increase for city employees and public safety?
Actually, we've got in the budget this year, we put a 2% pay increase that was initially before February, when COVID-19 became something that was on everybody's mind and everybody's lips, we had intended to start that at the beginning of the fiscal year. We had to defer that in the revised budget that we ended up crafting so that the 2% will begin on January 1st. So yes, I can tell you that with some of the good news that the city manager and our finance director plan on presenting to council with regarding to closing out FY20, we anticipate being able to apply that increase in January. But I can tell you this:
All right, thank you, Mayor.
David, let me add. We are also council has been insistent on this. The city manager backs it. We do intend to conduct a comprehensive pay study. We have not done one since city manager 2007?
2006, yeah.
2006. So we do need to kind of take a look and make sure that our folks are being compensated for the jobs that they're doing.
And Mayor, let me just, if I may add, Mayor.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
A pay increase, but there is no change in health insurance premium, which is important because that can take away from your the take-home pay, and so we've been able to maintain the same health insurance premium, and I think that's a good thing.
And I think that's the second year in a row that we've been able to give a 2% increase with no adjustments to anything coming out of their paycheck.
That's correct.
We know that's not a ton of money, but it's something that we've worked very hard to do, to try to be able to show them a little bit. We do appreciate the work they do for the citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. City Manager. Those are actually all of the questions that we have. Mr. City Manager, could you reiterate the importance of the census and also those voting dates and times?
Yes. Again, the census is about the money, and we really need people to. We only have until September 30th, and we need them to complete the census. Right now, a couple of weeks ago, we were only at 56%. And 56% is totally unacceptable. We can do better, and I am calling on citizens to help us, help Columbus, Georgia, by completing the census. We need citizens to assist us, and I'm pulling up those voting dates again right quick, but. If we do not complete the census and get our numbers right, we are not going to be able to be the second largest city in Georgia. And my goal is that we are the second largest city in Georgia. And we need citizens to make sure that we don't let Augusta outperform us.
Mr. City Manager, if I could interject, one of the reasons that it's so significantly important, or several reasons that we get these folks to fill out the census, is we get federal dollars that goes towards medical care for the most underserved. It goes for children's medical care. It goes for assistance in providing meals to people through WIC and some of the other programs. But beyond that, it also impacts economic development. We have people complain or call us and say, why don't you put a nice restaurant in such and such part of town? We can't do that. We can do our part, and we have, by investing hundreds of millions of dollars into infrastructure, but we can't make those organizations go there. What entices them to go there is when they see a complete count, they see the number of people that live in those areas, then it becomes a good marketing plan for them to place that restaurant in a place where there may not be a lot of restaurants right now. But if we don't get the census filled out completely and accurately, they'll just walk on by that opportunity. So there's just so many things that the census impact. It also impacts representation. If we don't get our numbers turned in, there could be a reshuffling of the congressional districts. We could lose representation both at the state, local, and worse at the federal level. So it is critical. And I'll say this, we have a lot of folks worried about the information that's collected, where it goes. It is against the law for that information to go anywhere other than the census. So ICE, the FBI, all of the law enforcement, they don't get this information. So we don't need you to be timid about filling this out. We need you to count, and to do that, you have to be counted. So, sorry, I just wanted to butt in a little bit.
Yeah, and so, Mayor, let me just remind people again of the voting. The last day to register to vote in Georgia, in the Georgia General and Special Election, is October 5th. October 5th is the last day to register to vote. Early voting in person begins October 12th through 30th at the Citizen Services Center at Citizens Way. It's across from the library. You know where that is, and the Muskogee Education Building. October 26th through 30th only, you can vote at the Columbus Convention and Trade Center, and that's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so we want to encourage people to know the dates that you can vote, get out and vote. And I've heard from the elections director, and she has provided me some additional information. There are 2 drive-up boxes at Frank Chester and City Services Center, 2 walk-up boxes at the new Health Department and City Services Center. Over 22,000 absentee ballots already issued. Start mailing tomorrow, and ballot collection boxes open on September 21st. September 21st, today is the 17th. Those ballot collection boxes open on September 21st. Make sure that you're registered to vote. Know that you can vote early at the City Services Center and at the Trade Center, and know that there are drop-off boxes. There's no excuse for not voting, and there is no excuse for not completing the census and helping make your city better. And so those are things I want to leave the citizens with who are listening by Facebook, on CCG TV, and otherwise.
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor Henderson, those are all of the questions that we have for now, so I will turn it over to you.
David, thank you. First, let me thank you for another excellent job in helping us to moderate this. I want to thank all the department heads and the employees of the Columbus Consolidated Government who've given up their evening to be here to answer your questions. And mostly, I want to thank all of you who have participated and who have joined in and who have gotten actively engaged with the folks that work in your city government, so that you can express your concerns and ask your questions. Now, we do this every 3 months, so I anticipate we'll have one more before the year end. And I will leave you, the city manager mentioned one of the things I wanted to talk about, but we do need you to fill out the census. We also need you to continue to be mindful that COVID-19 is still a thing. It's still around. And until that vaccine is able to be distributed, not just developed, but has to be able to be distributed to the American people, particularly the folks here in Columbus. We want you to continue to do what you've done, and that's look after your neighbor by socially distancing, washing your hands, and wear your mask. And I think that's going to wrap us up. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again in 3 months when we do the next Let's Talk Columbus.